Good morning, welcome to Middle Earth Readings. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I'm the founder of MagginRose.com, and I am here today to set you up for your week ahead. A little bit of magical inspiration, a little bit of feeling into what energies are flowing through the world right now, what might be coming up, what challenges, what opportunities. We are in our new moon week. So today is the Monday the 15th of May, and we have a new moon coming on the 19th. It is a new moon in Inguz. So Inguz is the rune of gestation. It's the root of the seed beneath the earth. So we're going to be playing with that. We are also, the sun, Suna's chariot, is also in Inguz at the moment. So it's a really powerful, potent time to be setting new intentions, which is great because that is what our new moon work is all about. It is all about intention setting. I can see, hello, good morning, Maggie, lovely to see you. If you are here with me live, please do give me a little wave just to say, yes, I'm here. I can see that a few of you are there already. If you are catching up with me on the video, then just pop hashtag replay into the chat box if you are in the Facebook group, so that I can say hello and see what you're doing and keep up with your comments. That would be great. And I know some of you join me also via the blog and via YouTube. You're very welcome. Do pop your comments in. I'm not as quick at responding for those of you who are on YouTube and Facebook, just because most of the action happens within the Hearth Space community, but I do endeavour to respond to your questions and comments as quickly as I can. So good morning, Heidi from Wisconsin, lovely to see you. And Chen, you've shared your rune already, which is great. We'll get onto that in a moment. Suki is sharing her rune. Good morning, Lisa, that's lovely. So we're going to go through the theme that has come when I've done my reading of all of the runes that are present with the planets in the planetary wheel. And then we're going to look at the planetary movements this week and how they are impacting us. And for those of you who have been with me before, you will know the drill. Please do share the rune that you are working with at the moment. So for some of you, you will want to select a rune for this lunar month and say, okay, I'm going to be setting my intentions. What is it that I would like to grow into, to manifest through the course of this month? You can name that through the course of this week, and then your lunar rune becomes your guide and your support and your energy holder for those intentions through the course of the lunar month. But you can also choose a rune just for the week, just for the day, just purely for what we're working on today. That's absolutely fine. Whatever works for you. Hi, Michelle. You've got Gibo and Thurisaz from the 9 Mothers reading. So we did a reading in the Hearth Space a little while back, the 9 Mothers reading, and I know for a lot of you that was a really powerful reading, and it gave you your year ahead look, so that's great. And that is really powerful work to be doing. Obviously, when I'm working on sharing with you the astrological movements, that's because those are shared. They are, all of us will to some extent, on some level, feel the impact of those energies, because they're the energies of the planets sort of hitting the chords, resonating with the runes. But we also have our individual birth runes, for those of you who know your birth runes, and you've got readings that you have done for yourself, and they all come together, they all combine. Hi Suzanne, love and blessings to you too. So, as if I've forgotten something. Have I forgotten something? No, we've done our rune. So you can select your rune. If you've already done so, that's great. You can select it now during the course of this reading, in which case what you'll want to do is just to tune in for a moment, just to settle into your energy. Obviously, if you're members of the Hearth Space or you're on Awaken, you will know about how to powerfully select your own rune. Or you can do it after this session. You can feel into the energies and then you can say, okay, which rune is mine? I haven't been called to select my rune yet. I'm actually going to select it a little bit closer to the new moon. I'm going to set my intentions and then see what rune is partnering with me. So for some of you, you'll have a rune that you're working with, for others you won't. That's absolutely fine. But if you do have a rune, please do share it, and we'll see which runes we are. Well, I know which runes we're going to be working with because I have done my drawing of the runes. Did a little rune reading through them down to see which runes we're going to be working with. So we're going to be working with 6 runes today, taking a deep dive into them. So for some of you, your rune will be covered. For some of you, they won't. And obviously, you can still go to the magginrose.com to look up the meanings of your runes. There's also plenty of books out there as well that you can use to help you to start to bring the magic of the runes from the outside into the inside. And most people will know that there comes a point when you realize that they were there inside all along. It just takes us a little time to recognize them. But if you are a speaker of any of the Germanic languages, you've known them since you started to speak. Right, so that's me. So I'm feeling very energized today. I want to say thank you to those of you who reached out last week, because I didn't do Middle-earth readings, and I do try when I can, if for whatever reason I can't do Middle-earth readings, to do it later in the week, but that doesn't always happen, and sometimes I'm actually on holiday and then I want to actually be on holiday. But this was unexpected, and I really appreciated everybody's messages. My family is fine, everyone is fine, but I just needed my priorities to be with my family through the course of last week. But I then went on a 2-day women's empowerment conference. Some of you will know I am a certified trainer and coach, specifically working in the field of women's leadership. This is not women's leadership like you might expect it to be. It combines very, very powerful practical tools with a deeply spiritual approach, which is one of the reasons I like it. And I was doing visioning work, which I've done many times in that space. It's a great space for me to have the energy held for me so that I can go and I can do that visioning work. And for the first time in that space, while I was connecting in with my own personal vision, and then we were doing clearing work around what are the things that are holding you back for your vision. For the first time in my clearing work, I did a little bit of, there's a little bit of release. There's always something in there, something personal in there. But as things were bubbling up, I was like, oh, hold on, that's not mine. Or if it is mine, it's inherited. I don't know if that resonates with any of you, if you're already, a healer, or if you do this type of work a lot, that sometimes you can come up against things and you can go, even though I can feel this flowing through my body right now, I don't recognize it as being rooted in me. And it was this feeling of, the only way I could describe it was self-mistrust. Deep self-mistrust, this hesitancy, this standing at the sort of edge of a cliff going, oh, what is this? What is this? And obviously, for me, my vision is so much about supporting, creating a new generation of connected, creative, collaborating energy workers, soul workers, spiritual healers, working in, grounded in, and weaving into their work the ancestral magics of Northern Europe. And I was like, oh, well, obviously it's coming through me for a reason. What is the reason around this? And a lot of images came through, a lot of images flowed through for me, and I'm not going to share all of them because we'd be here for a long time. There's a lot of unpacking for me to do around things like the sharpness of the runes that people can feel when they work with them visually before they started to work with them energetically. It can feel sharp. It sort of ties into this image of the Viking wielding an axe and this sort of warrior figure, and then a huge amount of flooding through of cultural shame, of having being in a culture of white privileged. I know not everybody is privileged in Northern Europe, but relatively to the rest of the world, and to people who have come from the Northern European backgrounds, the majority of us are in a very privileged position. Having created wars, having had a huge amount to do with climate change, you can go back further into imperialism, colonialism, this... Yes, I'm not going to go any further. You can feel into that. And all of that was flowing through. So it was sort of saying, well, as I dig deeper into my own spirituality and into my own ancestral practices, and I feel that desire to bring them through, I also feel all of those other things that make me distrust that heritage and say, I don't want to be part of it for whatever reason. And I wanted to bring that today because that's certainly something that I am going to be working through more and more, and it's a conversation that I have with a number of people as I'm talking. But what are the conversations I have more frequently with people in our community They might have a little bit of, oh, what are the runes? As they first come in, they feel a little bit sharp, they feel a little bit pointy, and they might not be able to put their finger on what that means at that point. But as people move in and they sort of go, oh, I'm feeling a calling, but then they say, well, where does that calling come from? And the questions they ask themselves are like, who am I? Who am I? My ancestors come from all over the place. Who lived here who lived in these lands? And the answer is, of course, lots of people. There was a flow all of the time happening. It's difficult to root. It's difficult to connect. We know, Odin having all of these different names. Odin, Wotan, Wodanaz, because that the culture was emerging and it was changing and it was flowing all of the time. It doesn't feel cohesive in that sense. It's plural. It's a plurality of experiences and peoples all working within a particular paradigm. And then you have people who their ancestors came from Northern Europe, but they no longer live in Northern Europe, nor did their mother and father. It's like, who am I? Who am I? I don't know where to stand. I don't know where my place is. And sometimes we have to feel that more energetically in our bodies than we do in our minds, because our minds go, oh, I want the family tree. I want to do my ancestry work, or whatever it is. And then on top of that question comes, okay, if I don't know who I am, or, if I've been called to this work and I am of, a very blended heritage, linguistically, I've travelled across different lands, I've got, a really fascinating family tree, all of those things can make us feel like, who am I? I'm an eclectic being. And I know we've talked about this in some of the in-conversation with interviews that I've done with people, but it can feel like a vulnerability. This vulnerability of, I can't claim that my family have been rooted in one place, in one type of spiritual practice, in one language, one story, one set of unified stories for any period of time, and so I'm confused. And then the question that comes next is then, therefore, who am I to? If I don't know who I am, who am I to bring the voice of what I'm feeling, of what I'm knowing in my guts, of what I'm feeling, of the images that I'm seeing and the calling that I have to work within this tradition? Who am I to do that? That question comes up. And all of these things were playing in my mind, and I looked at what I'd set up already for the course of this month. And this week, the theme that we're working with is the theme of vision and vulnerability. And at that point I was like, of course, this is why all of these things are coming through. Perhaps this is why I felt that sense of self-mistrust coming through at this point, was because whatever our vision, whether like me, or you're thinking, yes, I want to collaborate on Maggie's vision, that's why I'm here, or whether you have a vision that is yours, and you're working with me on Middle Earth readings because you want to support intentions and create powerful intentions and be true to the vision of a world that you want to see bloom and grow. Vulnerability comes so fast after vision, because vision requires us to do something different, to do something new, to stand out, step up, be seen, be heard, and that feels vulnerable. And so the point at which a new vision comes through is often followed very quickly by the point at which all of our vulnerabilities show up at the same time. It's almost like a consequence of the moment where we vision something different. And so when you're thinking about setting your intentions for this week, and this month as well, because we're going to be holding this energy, there's a broader theme around tradition and transformation, which is coming through all of this month, and vision and visibility is a little bit of a sub-theme around that. What do you need from your rune? What support do you need? What help do you need in order to speak to those vulnerabilities and say, yeah, I see you, that's okay. That's okay. We can still move forward with this. We can take the first step. You don't have to be at the point where the vision is realized yet. What's the first step towards it? That's what I want you to think about in terms of thinking about the runes that you're going to work with. Okay? So let's just do the planetary movements before we do anything else. So I've mentioned that we have a new moon in Ingu. So we have this seed of gestation. So whether you are thinking is I want to harness that energy of the Ingu's rune that is there, this sort of new seed forming in the earth, recognizing that the intentions that we set might be, well, let's put this a different way. The vision that we have for what we want to achieve in our lives may be quite a long-term vision. So the intentions that you set, you will want them to be tangible first step intentions. So I don't need to have every step of the process mapped out in my mind in order to take the first step towards it. This is why working with the lunar energy is really important. If you think about the sun's chariot in the northern tradition, it's quite a beautiful partnership of masculine and feminine embodied within the chariots of the sun and moon in their own right. So the solar energy is quite a masculine energy of like forward motion, committed, individual drive. This is my vision, I'm going towards it. Held by a feminine deity, by Suna or Sol. And the moon being the other, sort of fluid, flexible, there's a new opportunity has come in here. So I need to flex, I need to be able to adapt, in the moment. Still seeing the goal, but the road that I follow might be different. And so that feminine energy is held by a masculine deity. So we have these partnership is always there. Totally different tradition, but you can see it in the yin and yang. We're going to look at Aerra today as one of the runes. We're going to look at that. There is that partnership of the polarity that's important, that's going to be coming through. So if you like the yin and yang symbol, the runic, it's not equivalent, but the most resonant with the yin and yang symbol is the Aerra rune. So we have the new moon energy, and our intentions are like our little bit of a solar. I'm setting my intention. What is it going to be? I'm going to move towards it. And then we might flex through the course of the month. We might work with the moon, the energies of the moon, to help us to do that. Okay, I might need to adapt a little bit. How am I going to get these intentions going? And then when we come to the next month and we reconnect with vision, the road, the landscape will have changed because you're at a different place in the road. So then you look and you say, okay, well, what needs to happen next? So the sun stays on the horizon, drawing us forwards, and the moon supports us in adapting our path and our course in the moment. So these are important things to recognize and to help us when we're feeling vulnerable, to say, I don't need to embody the whole vision, I just need to take that first step. It's what we're looking at. So with our sun in Ingus and our new moon in Ingus, it's a really powerful time for intention setting. This time for renewal. So if you are feeling that sense of possibility, perhaps there might be a little bit of, I've already taken the inner journey, but the world isn't transitioning with me as fast as I would like. That can come through a little bit. And so it's saying, remember, you are sowing seeds. Let me find my Ingus rune while we're going. You're sowing seeds. Here we go. And you can use Yngvi Frey. So the Ingus rune is, the patron is Yngvi Frey. And Yngvi Frey is another blended deity because it's sometimes considered to be Frey, the god Frey, who is a member of the Vanir, and then he moves over to become a member of the Aesir. But Yngvi Frey is also seen as a divine ancestor. So the idea is that maybe Frey came down to earth, and he became a divine ancestor in some way, and he became Yngvi Frey. So he transformed himself. He literally came from the sky down to the earth, became the seed, sowed something new. And the Ingus rune poem talks about Yngvi Frey taking a journey. And it just says he took the journey and then he returned. And there's so much in there when you start to energetically work and connect with this rune around the journeys that we take, that when we return different. And the recognition that sometimes the world needs to get used to the fact that we have returned different, and we need to be a little bit patient with that. So this comes through there. Now, energetically at the moment, Odin has just been on a retreat. So he's taken sort of an Ingus journey deep down into the realms of Lagus, of water and of self with Manas, and he's now emerging, coming back out. When I say he's been on retreat, the planet has been in retrograde. So as if you have your Ingus rune, you can also call on Odin as a useful patron to support you with that, remembering that he's going through the same thing as you. Going through the same thing at this point of I've come with new ideas, new possibilities, but now I need to get everybody else on board with them, and that's going to take time in order to do that. So patience is a virtue in this in the grand scheme of things here. Now, The other movement that we have is a movement of the halls. So the halls are the equivalents of the zodiac, the Northern tradition equivalents of the zodiac. They were put together by the fabulous rune mistress Freya Aswin. And we are going to be moving out of Skardi's hall. I love Skardi. We're in the half space. We're still doing a bit of work with Skardi because we're working on the calendar month, but in the lunar month, in the house system, we are moving into Freya's hall on the 20th. So we will have about a month working with the goddess Freya. If you're connected with the goddess Freya, it's a really nice time to work with her. And she adds a little bit of wisdom in here, which I think will come through a little bit more strongly because I didn't draw the Feyre rune, so it might well be that she comes more. But the Bacana rune also wants to play a little bit, so look out for them later on in the sequence of our lunar journey through these coming 4 weeks. But she's talking again about flexibility, and I mentioned that sort of feminine energy. So Freya is able to, she embodies, in my view, the Jungian archetypes, which obviously developed a lot later, but Jung did a lot of work around myth, the myth and the archetypes within myth. She embodies the archetypes of the mature feminine very well. Jung's archetypes of the mature feminine. I work with them, interestingly, that they are part of the women's leadership work that I do. And so she talks to us, she's reminding us that we might need to adapt and flex our own energies to meet the needs of the people, the place around us in this time, to say, okay, I have been on this journey and I have returned. Masculine energy, Odin, there, I'm here, da-da, I have a vision, it's fabulous. And then Freya comes in and says, well, what do the people around you need from you in order for them to take that journey as well? Do they need, for example, a little bit of mothering and nurturing? I believe in you. I'm here to support you. Yes, this could be a bit difficult, but you've got this, that type of thing. Do they need that more like warrioress energy? So obviously, Freya is the warrioress par excellence. Her hall, Sessrumnir, which Freya Aswin calls it Folkvang, which is actually the fields are around Sessrumnir, but Folkvang, most people know that name more, is the place where warriors go. They go there. Half of the slain go to Freya's hall. She is a warrioress. Do the people around you, does the project that you are working on require your commitment, your what's the word I'm looking for? You're engaged, motivated, driven self, that excitement, that little bit of fun as well that comes in as well. So it's like, how do I need to flex my energy to help my dreams to unfold in the moment, is what Freya is offering. So I wanted to bring that in as well, and that will come through more, and I expect that we will explore that more through the course of the coming weeks as Freya reveals her wisdom to us when we move into her hall. Now, those are the two movements that we have this week. For those of you who have your Sooner Star Wheel, who are members of Sooner Star Wheel, you're going to receive your overview of the whole month ahead, a little bit more around transformation and tradition. We're going to be looking at that, and we are playing a little bit of a heads up for you because I know it hasn't been sent out yet, but it will come in the next couple of days. We're going to be working with this template here. So we're going to be going through week by week your new moon intentions and putting your runes in at the top and working through all of them. So we'll be doing a lot of this in a little bit more detail than I'm doing here. So that's going to be coming, so look out for that. And we are, really looking forward to that. I'm just looking at how can I support you as best as possible in, who knows, becoming the runic astrology practitioners of the future. So, if you're interested in runic astrology and you want to delve more deeply into the mechanics behind it, then Sooner Star Wheel is a really good resource for you to use, and you're just about to get your month ahead resources. It's a great time to join. So we've done our two planetary movements, so now I'm going to look at our runes. So I've looked at Ingus already. So for those of you who have Ingus, really potent, powerful time for you. Okay. The next deity, I say deity actually, it's a little bit of a deity. The next rune that came up for me was Ansus, and this was a reminder for me of what I said about Odin, that he's been on retreat. And now he's coming up and he's ready. He's there and he's like, yes, I'm ready. But there are two things that Odin counsels you. So if you've got your Ansu's rune and you're setting your intentions at the moment, there are two things that he counsels you on. First of all is, what learning or skills might I need to bring into my arena in order to fulfill my intentions? And he's really clear here, and this is really important. It doesn't mean that you have to have them. It means that you might need to find somebody who does. So this is the first piece, that willingness from Odin to say, I am willing to evolve. I'm willing to learn. I know I don't have all of the answers yet. I've got the vision. Do you remember I was talking about, like, the vision is on the horizon? But I don't have all of the steps yet. So if you have Ansu's as your spiritual guide rune for this coming month ahead or this week ahead, then you might want to ask yourself that question. What needs to be learned? What skills are required? What expertise is required? What advice is required? And where can I get it? The second piece is around communication. That sense of, who do I need to communicate with what my intentions are? Now, obviously, we work on the basis that there is something very powerful in setting intentions, and that they support, like, magical manifestation, the act of setting intentions, particularly if you do the symbol rite, if you do a ritual around this, creates that energetic container that invites support in, that invites some magical support in. But that magical support will get a bit annoyed if you don't also do the practical bits that come along with that as well. So who do I need to communicate with, and how do I need to communicate with them? Remembering Freya's lesson around, well, I might need to bring a particular style, a particular presence to my communications in that time. And really, Odin is also sort of suggesting, feel it inside carefully. If there is something that you want to achieve and you are worried about communicating it to other people, that's the vulnerability piece. So if you are, I want to communicate, but what do I need to say? Some pointers here. You don't need to communicate to people who you know are going to say, who are not going to be supportive. No, it's such a classic mistake that people make when they're, I really want to do this thing, it's going to be great, I'm so excited. And they go and they tell, I don't know, like a close member of their family. The people who know you the most in your old form, who knew Odin before he went on retreat, before he changed, he comes back up and he's emerged. And family and people who are in protector, roles of protector, because you're at their hearth and they're important to you, you are important to them, they want to protect you, often want to protect you from yourself. Oh, no, don't do that. That doesn't sound, stay as you are, it's safe, be safe, be safe. And so they can put a downer on us before we're ready for that. So you want to choose the people that you're going to communicate to, people who can help you, or people who you know are likely to champion you, and most importantly, with people who know what you're talking about. So I've got really want to train in a new healing modality. I've maybe been a Reiki healer for a long time, really feeling called to work more strongly with the crystals. Who are you going to go and speak to about that? You can go and speak to somebody who is a Reiki healer. No, stick with Reiki. That's going to be people who know what you do. Oh, no, you're doing so well. That's brilliant. Do you need to spend more money on that qualification? What's this for? All of that stuff. Or you can speak to somebody who's a crystal healer and find out about their experience of being a crystal healer and learn from them and do the learning piece at the same time. So, it's picking and choosing, being selective. That's not to say that you don't then go and speak to other people about what your new fledgling vision of what the future is going to hold. But do your research first, find your collaborators first, find your supporters first. Then you can move on to people who are going to perhaps offer some really constructive and helpful critique. So whatever the vision is, if you're feeling some vulnerability around it, don't let that be a shutting down of your communication. So what Odin is saying, but be strategic about your communication, about who you call in to support you. Okay, so the next rune that wanted to come and play with us and play with you and supporting you in your intentions was the Tewaz rune. Here we go. Tewaz rune here. And what Tyr wanted to speak to was that sense of taking on the mantle of the spiritual warrior And you remember that I talked about self-mistrust right at the very beginning. I was talking about the way in which some people, particularly if you're somebody who wants to bring good into the world, we want to bring peace, we want to bring harmony, we want to bring healing, transformation, like the good things, yay! We can feel a very strong calling to work within the Northern tradition, which I'm assuming that most of you here feel that to some extent, because you're here talking to me. And then get a bit closer in and go, oh, there are aspects of this that I do not like. That feel aggressive, violent, invading, selfish. Feel into what comes for you when you look at like sort of images, look at some of the, if any of you have watched any of the series, of fabulous series about the Vikings that are out there at the moment. Great power and passion and commitment and all of the lovely stuff, but also darkness and shadow and difficulty and violence. And what Tia says is, you may have the call from the gods of the Northern European tradition. They may be calling you, and I do personally believe that the gates are wide open at this point, that they have come back to us for a reason, to provide us with a form of spirituality that is missing in the world right now, and particularly for people of Northern European ancestry, that the balance between masculine and feminine, which I've talked about a little bit, so potent and powerful within the Northern tradition, that they're coming forward. And yet they're saying, Tia takes a journey of evolution through the course. That's what he role models, this journey of evolution from role to role to role. He says, I become what is needed in the moment. I am unafraid of change and evolution. And he says, you are not the people of the past. Your context is different. The way in which you are going to emerge as a spiritual warrior is different. And so we need to be able to find the things that we need and say, I am not trying to become who my ancestors were, because their time is done. I am standing and saying what is needed in the moment. So the question that he asks, and it comes up in the other runes as well, that we're going to be looking at a bit later, is if you were to imagine a tribe of elders, if you were to say, I was, instead of being born at a point when I'm in a pioneering time, where, a lot of us who are called into the Northern tradition are going to be called to be pioneers, because we don't have many, we have some, we don't have many teachers out there. Who would I choose? If I could choose my circle of spiritual elders, we did some of this in the Beyond the Veils retreat. Was it the Beyond the Veils retreat? Yes. It's over. It's not over. We're finishing it tonight. But we looked at that in our first session, was around like creating a circle of elders for yourself. But if you were to create a circle of elders that were specifically, the spiritual warriors that you wanted to follow, what would they look like? What clothes would they wear? I like to think, like when they're like sustainably sourced clothes and things that they've made themselves, or that have been made by somebody who they perform the magical ritual together, these like deeply empowered objects. There's what I started to dream into is, what would that circle of elders look like in 7 generations time? Who will those elders of the Northern European tradition be? And that's what he's inviting there. He's saying, don't look to the past for inspiration, but to the future for intention, is what he asks. So this intention setting energy of Tewaz comes through very strongly. That ability to say yes, but not that. This is for me, this is not. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, the Northern European tradition is being born in our hearts. That's where it is rebirthing. That's where the seed, the Ingu seed, is found. So after the Tewaz rune, the next rune that decided to come, Uruz has just come up there. So it's Uruz. Darcy has just come up in the chat box, literally at that moment. It's like, you knew, Darcy, you knew, with the Uruz rune, because it was the Uruz rune that came up as our next spirit guide for this coming week. Where is our Uruz rune? So Uruz is the rune of the aurochs. It's interesting that it comes after Tyr, because obviously Uruz is a rune, incredibly powerful rune and symbol of healing, but it is also a symbol of a creature that is extinct. You know, it was partially hunted to extinction, partially, who knows, maybe the loss of natural landscapes could have affected it as well. Maybe different forms of cattle coming, as you know, we can't say for certain. Maybe disease, you know, lots of reasons. Probably human made, regardless, if I'm honest. But that we call on the spirit wisdom of a creature that no longer walks this earth, but we feel it so strongly. Now, so many people, Uruz is the rune that draws them in. It was the rune that drew me in originally in the Northern European tradition. It just went boom, I'm there. And what it is talking about is this sense again. You know, I was talking about Tyr, and Tyr, you know, deliberately allows himself to be wounded in order to be in integrity. He says, what I look like, what I can do, is less important than who I am. You know, that's what he says to himself. That is my truth. And so he puts his right arm into the mouth of the Fenris wolf in order for the Fenris wolf to be bound. Incredibly important spiritual teaching within the Northern European tradition about that willingness to sacrifice the identity of who we were in order to be fully present and whole in the moment. You know, he sort of says, you know, no one else can do this but me, because the Fenris, I am the friend of the Fenris wolf, and if anyone is going to betray him at the moment that he needs to be betrayed, it will be me. You know, I'm taking that, and I'm going to own that, because to do anything else would be a lie. It would be weak, is his view. And so, you know, he claims more strength than he's ever had before in the moment where he is physically diminished. So the Uruz rune comes along and it says, it is absolutely possible to be wounded and whole, to be more whole through becoming wounded. One of the pieces that I wrote again when I was working on my visioning, which is still very new for me from the 2 days that I've just done, was that for me, wholeness is the power to be in full presence, to give and to receive from the moment that is currently here. You know? And if you feel into that and you think to yourself, like, am I able to, first of all, fully give of myself in the moment? You know, I was talking about vision and vulnerability. I've got this big vision. Am I able to give myself fully to it? Or are there things that are holding me back? I've got this big vision. Am I fully able to access the support that could be available to me, or am I afraid of asking for it? That giving and receiving, being able to be fully present in the moment. That's what the Uruz rune is there to support. It's that sense of being like really present to yourself and saying that's the first step. And I was talking about the step towards the vision. If you are like up there in your head going, no, I can't do this, and you're rising further and further out of your rooted, anchored earth center, the less able you are to take the steps towards the vision. So Uru says, come back into yourself, recognize that you are whole, claim that wholeness, and step forward. It's what the Uru's rune counsels. So slightly different from the Tewas rune, which is that more focused action. I'm taking that action in the moment. I'm being the spiritual warrior. Uru says, what do you need first in order to step more fully into presence? If you're struggling at all, the Uru's rune will be really powerful for you during this time. Okay, so I mentioned the Aerra rune. So the Aerra rune has come up. I mentioned it in the context of thinking about the polarity, about partnerships of masculine and feminine I was talking about with the sun and the moon. I talked about it in the context of, for me, that's one of the beautiful aspects of the Northern European tradition that is so important for us at this point, is this new like rebirth relationship between the divine masculine and the divine feminine that it allows us to feel into and to explore. And the Aerra rune is traditionally, because Aerra means year, it is the partnership between the winter and the summer, the ever-turning circle. Where's my Aerra rune? Didn't get them out before Middle-earth readings. That's bad of me, isn't it? I have to sort of flick through the stack at this point. So the Aerra rune reminds us as well of the partnership between the past and the future. Do you know, I did actually get it out ahead of the session, so I've been here flicking through it. No, it was already there. Here we go. The Aerra rune was sitting on my desk, reminding me that past Maggie had already empowered future Maggie to deliver this session, but future Maggie forgot. You know, partnership of past and present is what the Aerra rune is offering to us. It's not just winter and summer, it's past and present. And it says again, if I have a big vision or a small vision, doesn't have to be a huge thing, it could just be something that's like, this is what I've seen, this is what I'm feeling into at the moment, that I want to manifest, I want to bring into the world. What does the future require of me in order to do that? And how have I already been prepared for this? Now, if you think about it, so, you know, what are the qualities, what's the expertise, what is it that I have that I can offer that the past can offer to the future? Okay, so it does this, and it's a lovely partner in some ways to the Aerra rune, to the Uru's rune that we were talking about there, that sense of like coming and anchoring back into the self all of the time. You want to do that, and then the Aerra rune says that space is this little space in the center, around which the past and the future are always revolving. You know, so we're always in the present moment, which is the only like reality, broadly speaking. And the past and the future are revolving around it. So in the present moment, drawing in energy from the past, drawing that in, remembering me visioning and saying, okay, what is it that I need to release? Now, those are things from the past that are influencing the present, for good or for worse. You know, there's good and bad. So the Aerra rune might say, what do you need to release in order? What are the vulnerabilities that need to be released? Or it might say, what are the skills that you already have? What are the steps that you've already taken that prepare you for this vision? So it's that moment of sort of review, and then saying, okay, I'm either going to do that release work, and the Aerra rune can support you in doing that. You know, imagine it turning around you and you're just breathing. As you breathe out, you're breathing out the old energy that I don't need, and as it turns, you get to the future and you breathe it in. I'm breathing in what I do need. You can work with your runes lots of different ways. If you're an awaken, you'll already have all of those tools to do that work. So you're working with the Aerra rune, you're working with the partnership between the past and the future. That's what came through most strongly to me, but I have actually already mentioned like other partnerships that the Aerra rune represents. These sort of forces that always need to work together and knit together in order for us to be whole and be the spiritual warrior, and to sow the seed, and to be Odin holding the vision. You know, all of these things require that Aerra energy. And then the final rune that came through as our to be discussed, revealed to us through the course of today, is the Thurisaz rune. So the Thurisaz rune, here we go. It's Thurisaz. And this one I was like, ooh, that feels a bit edgy when I felt into it. I've drawn the Thurisaz rune a couple of times in personal readings over the last couple of weeks, so I know that this was important, and that's one of the reasons why I really committed to that release work when I did it. And it talks very much about the need to have, we've covered this a little bit, so that this emphasizes it. Thurisaz emphasizes this. Sometimes we have something inside us that is so powerful, it has to be expressed. Now, the simplest form of that represents the Thurisaz rune is emotion. Good emotions, bad emotions, whatever they are. Thurisaz represents the force of emotion. And it teaches us that if we are not able to express that emotion, for it to flow through us, which is what it is meant to do, what it's intended to do, it gets stuck in the system. And even positive emotions will eventually, you know, that we find them easier because we're like, yeah, positive emotion, that's fine, and I'll allow that through. You know, where it's acceptable, isn't it, to show positive emotion most of the time, not always. We'll come back to that in a moment. But the classic emotions that are associated with Thurisaz are anger, fear. Sitting underneath that, shame can come through quite a lot as well, or things that we are taught in our society not to express. Don't express it. And then they sit in our systems and they stay there. So Thurisaz is saying, find a safe space to express those emotions, because if you do not, they are creating the vulnerabilities that come through. They're creating that we're sitting with them, that we're carrying them with us the whole time, you know, and that's really difficult, really challenging. Now, I mentioned some positive emotions, and I think this is important because in some parts of society, showing any emotion, you know, like crying with joy is considered to be, you know, oh no, can't have that. I'm just very buttoned up. That's a term, isn't it, for the English, but to be buttoned up. And that's equally, that gets stuck in the system, because then we feel shame if we show emotion. You know, I've seen an absolutely totally senior, very, very senior person in a very, very large organisation requesting of a member of staff not to cry with happiness when they had won an award over which they had every right to be super excited. You know, so I should be so happy for them, and they're like, oh no, emotion, gets to the point where we can't feel emotion at all, and that's when our Thurisaz energy gets stuck. It becomes armor, and it gets stuck in our bodies, and it's no good. Now, and then our attempts to stop ourselves from being vulnerable at all mean that we are walking unwhole, you know, as empty as we can be, as disconnected as we can be. No, and the Thurisaz rune, people often think of as being a difficult rune, but it isn't a difficult rune. It is difficult in our society. And you remember I was talking about that mistrust, the mistrust and all the way in which the imagery that can be associated with and the stories that can be associated with the Northern tradition can feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable to us, and some of those rightly so. But the ability to be fully expressed with other people who are also fully expressed, and to say, yeah, I'm feeling really sad right now, and to cry, you know, or I'm feeling a lot of anger right now and I need to express that, and I need to be empowered to do that, and to actually have that out, and for that to be what I'm trying to communicate to be received. For us to be able to healthily express anger and to healthily witness somebody else's anger and then allow it to flow through us and not to get stuck in our systems at all. No? Okay. That was not for me. That person's anger was not for me. It wasn't for me to hold or fix or do anything with. It was simply an emotion coming through. These are things that we need so badly in our society. No, we need them so badly. And the Northern tradition, to my mind, that's one of the gifts that it offers us, you know, that space to be more fully expressed, to be more fully expressed in our bodies and our receiving of each other and our giving to each other, you know, to be fully present in the moment, to give and to receive, you know, knowing what's mine and what's not, you know. I could go on about this a bit. I'm going to stop evangelizing now. But I think that the Thurisaz rune is such a powerful, similar to the Hagalaz rune, North's rune, some of those other runes with bad reps. They are some of the most potent healing runes available to us at this time on our planet. No, we need their energy so badly. Okay, so that's me. Let's have a look and see, because I know that people have been posting. Who have I not covered in terms of runes that just feel as if they want to sort of like wiggle in just a little bit? So Chen, we mentioned the North's rune, didn't we? I mentioned it in the context of sometimes being one of the more uncomfortable runes, because it brings us in connection with our own desires, our own needs, and that can be challenging when what society tells us we should be doing is against what our needs or our desires are, or what our commitments are do not allow us to be in need. So I've mentioned this before, that the Gibo rune is the rune of commitments and promises, and then we get the North's rune where one of the moves, it's like a knot. Imagine when you make a promise, you make a knot and you pull it tight, and that's the Gibo rune, this knot, and then the pressure starts to pull. and the knot becomes tighter and tighter, and the Northeast rune says, pay attention. Pay attention here. Something is out of kilter. Something needs to change. And bearing in mind that where we are with intention setting, at this point, it is probably enough simply to give voice to what those needs and those desires are in safe spaces, to have those acknowledged and heard. Suki's got Feyu, that flowing energy. I can feel a little bit of Freya coming through there for you, Suki. Feyu rune doesn't have anything particular to say this time round. It will be coming up later for us. I've mentioned the Gibo rune. Michelle, you've got the Gibo rune there with the promises being made. Intention settings, a great time to make promises. Something there about not trying to make too many. Yeah, it's whispering to me of something there for you, Michelle. Perhaps it's on top of that Thurusaz and the Gibo rune. I think it's almost like sometimes we can get, because Gibo is often expressed in our modern society in terms of contracts, sort of written contracts, that sometimes we can miss that energy that's underneath those. Again, this is part for me of the magic of the Northern European tradition, is that we have spirits like the kin fetch, who is the spirit that is created when two or more people make a formal promise together, creates a spirit is born within that. And what we do in modern society, we tend to say, well, there's a contract and it will be reinforced by other people, and other people will make sure that it happens. It's somebody else's responsibility, and we forget that there's like a little spirit attached to that promise that we can also work with, and that retains the original intention that can't even be expressed in words. It holds that energy of the intention. So there's something there about feeling underneath expectation of what promises might mean, or what contractually is there, and looking at what's the energy that's underneath. So I think that was important to say. Meggie, you've got Manaz. Thor's chariot is in Manaz at the moment. That's for you. I think it's really about holding on to that sovereignty energy that we've been working on for the last couple of months, keeping that in, being the vision, and perhaps recognizing that the vulnerability is part of the vision. And you are embodying it with your Manaz energy. Suzanne says, yeah, I'm going to pick mine on the first day of the dark moon tomorrow. Great, so that's a beautiful time to do that. So yeah, you've got time to play with to pick your rune for the month ahead. Darcy, we've done Urus. So yes, okay, that's great. So I've touched on all of the runes, I think, a little bit if you brought them through today, which is lovely. So there we finish Middle Earth readings. Is there anything that I need to share with you for this coming week ahead? For those of you who are joining me for the rescheduled Beneath the Veils retreat this evening, we're going to be looking at past life work. Very excited about that, so I really look forward to seeing you there. We've got the Hearth Space coming up with our meditation and embodiment session, working with Skadi on Friday. And I haven't got a date set yet, but I am going to be interviewing a lovely lady called Rhiannak Aitken for our In Conversation With, so look out for that. That will be coming. That's something that will be broadcast into the Hearth Space, looking at our theme of influence and otherness. And Rhiannak, she does fabulous work with poetry. We were talking about intention setting and that ability to express. She, like me, is a wild voice facilitator, so we'll probably talk a little bit about the wild voice as well. So that is coming up for you as well. And for those of you who want to come to the Rune Magics workshop, free workshop happening on the 30th of May, I want to say, so we've got a little bit of time, but it is filling up very, very fast. So if you're interested in that, please do let me know. Don't let me know. Book is what I meant to say. Book on it, otherwise I don't want you to get to the point where you can't get a space on it. Okay, so good. Take care. Have a wonderful week ahead. I look forward to seeing many of you at the various events that we've got, and I will see you again next Monday.